The recent elections in Kenya have been declared to be null and void by the highest court in the country. If we follow constitutional democracy, the independence of the judiciary, and the rule of law, I think it's very important for us to be able to say, where do we go from here?
Electoral processes are not just about the parties that are taking part. Electoral processes is also about affirming the people, and in this case, it's affirming the votes and the voices of the Kenyan people that took part in the elections. Forget about the parties for a moment. The legitimacy of the process is also about affirming the legitimacy of Kenyans.
In my view, it's going to be very difficult to move through the process, but we have to go through it because we want a society built on constitutional democracy and the rule of law.
Any of us who knows democracy, we know that there are three important elements to any government, to any state. That is the executive, the National Assembly, and the judiciary. And quite often, we take the judiciary very much for granted. And yet, in any constitutional democracy, they are the ultimate arbiters in the event of any crisis. And therefore, perhaps even more powerful than the executive that come and go, than the National Assembly members that come and go.
The courts have made a decision. Let's follow the decision of the courts, but at the same time denounce these insinuations that the courts are a minority. There are only 6 people, where I was elected by a majority. Uhuru was undermining, rather, the court decision by sending that message to the people. It is dangerous.
I thought the initial reaction of the president was magnanimous when he said that he's going to accept their ruling. That's what you do as a leader. But then you don't give with one hand and take back by both hands. When I subsequently heard him calling the judiciary rogues that have been hijacked, that is extremely unfortunate. And I think it has to be condemned in the strongest terms.
In my view, I think that the same election management body in Kenya cannot be trusted to manage the process towards re-election of the president.
There are 2 ways to go. Either we reconstitute the IEBC through a very fair and transparent process. There should be no hurry. Kenya is still a young nation, a young democracy. We must not rush. We must be judicious and careful with every single step that we take. We have to be very careful. So either we reconstitute the IEBC afresh, or we ask the same judiciary, chaired by the Chief Justice, to run these election processes. But of course, you know they are going to blame them, that they are overreaching themselves. And because they are going to blame them and claim that as the judiciary, your boundaries have been set, you cannot be, a referee and judge at the same time. Perhaps we need to look elsewhere. We could also ask international bodies to oversee the process. I think there are enough men and women of integrity out there that can be brought to help us.
In my view, I think we need an independent body that within a month or so should go to Kenya, analyze everything and see how this can be done better than it was done before, based on the court.
I think as Kenyans, we should be proud of ourselves, because I think this was an important victory, not just for the opposition, it was an important victory for democracy and for the Kenyan people. And as many have said, for the African continent. And that is what we need to celebrate. Whatever the ultimate fate of the forthcoming repeat elections, you will never erase or wipe out the Supreme Court judgment going forward.